Scientific logic assumes inquiry is value-free. A naturalistic paradigm, in contrast, sees inquiry as inherently value-bound. In other words, the questions that science asks and tries to answer come out of a certain perspective with certain values. Scientific logic assumes there is one reality that is measurable and can be understood by fragmenting the whole and studying the pieces. A naturalistic paradigm, on the other hand, sees reality as multiple, constructive, and holistic. Everything is related and cannot be understood in isolation. Scientific logic hypothesizes that knower and known are independent. Naturalism sees knower and known as interactive and inseparable. In other words, there is no such thing as objective observation. Teasing out these details can get quite complicated, but you can see that the assumptions of scientific logic tell a particular story with particular consequences. A very useful and compelling story, but still a story. I value the insights and usefulness of the scientific story, but I crave the balance that the naturalistic paradigm can provide me. So humans, being conscious animals, live in this dichotomy between science and mysticism, informed by two conflicting stories. Just to give you a sense of this dichotomy, for a moment consider Scott. I could use my scientific techniques to describe Scott. His height, his weight, his pictures, his history, his relationships, the food he eats, the rate of growth of his toenails, etc., etc., etc. And I could come up with 1,000 descriptors of all his various parts. But could the combination of all these measures give me a real sense of what it's like to experience a relationship with Scott in all his magnificence? Suddenly feelings are important, and it's no longer just Scott that I'm observing, but a relationship between the two of us. Observer and observed. That is moving and changing and renewing itself in every moment. We do the same with how we view our Earth and other living creatures. We objectify. We've lost and entirely forgotten any spiritual relationship to life and the planet, a central reality to other cultures for millennia. Where for indigenous peoples the world was sacred, a sacred interconnected living whole that cares for us and for which in turn we need to care, our Mother Earth. For our Western culture, it has become something other, to exploit. So the bumper sticker, "Love Your Mother," calls for nothing less than a spiritual renaissance, a new story for the 21st century that gives as much importance to seeing the Earth as sacred as it does to the perspective of science, technology, and materialism. I believe that Unitarian Universalism is well placed to take a lead in this project, but I think we could do better. I think our church could give more priority to promoting a profound reverence for nature and the wider universe, and an awed recognition of their power, beauty, and mystery. At the UU General Assembly 2 years ago, I found no presentations about this issue, and there are none scheduled at this year's GA in Kansas City. I also think we could improve on the statement of the UU 7th principle. This promises respect for the interdependent web of all existence. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence. This strikes me as a cold, intellectual, objective statement that doesn't say anything about love, belonging, connection, passionate embrace, oneness. I would also like to amend our own church vision statement that currently reads, "Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbia grows in environmental consciousness and advocates for the health of the earth," no capital E, "and all living things. UUCC grows in environmental consciousness and advocates for the health of the earth and all living things." And I could come up with many things, but something like, "I pledge to love my Mother Earth," with a capital E, big capital E, with all my heart and all my soul and all my mind, and to constantly remind myself of the oneness of life. When using the slogan, love your mother, to refer to the earth, just for a moment consider it to refer to your real mother. Immediately for me, it brings up strong feelings of relationship, belonging, vulnerability, connectedness, family, nurturing, gratefulness, security. I know there's other mothers, but my mother was a good one. So does UUCC grows in environmental consciousness and advocates for the health of the earth and all living things bring up those sort of feelings in you? My wish is that we can begin to have conversations in our church about the deeper meaning of love your Mother Earth, and about how we can begin to spiritually reconnect with our deep earth roots. There's an energetic and growing ecological movement that reminds us that we are guardians of our planet, and it's our responsibility to look after the Earth's physical environment and myriad inhabitants. This movement is doing tremendous work in trying to turn back the devastation of humanity's plunder of the planet, but it rarely addresses our inherent responsibility for the sacred within creation. Instead, in only relating to the planet from a physical, scientific perspective, much of the environmental movement perpetuates the concept of the earth as something just physical, without sacredness or soul, and so reinforces the divorce of matter and spirit. While we may remember the sacredness of human beings, we've forgotten that the earth is also sacred, and that its soul can speak to ours. We are not realizing that our guardianship of the planet means taking responsibility for its physical and its sacred nature, and the interrelationship between the two. It is only through awakening to an awareness of the sacred within creation and its relationship to our own sacred nature that we can begin to redeem the primal imbalance that lies at the root of our present predicament. Any awareness of the world as a living whole needs to include its sacred dimension. Otherwise, we're just treating the symptoms rather than the cause. We cannot afford the split between spirit and matter. We cannot afford to ignore life's sacred nature. Our neglect and dismissal of the sacred within creation is in turn creating an inner wasteland as real as the tar sands in Alberta. The globalization of our soulless, materialist culture is having disastrous effects on our inner world, polluting it as much as the outer environment. And like the danger of climate change and the extinction of species, this inner wasteland is growing faster than we realize. How do we respond to this hidden crisis? How can we awaken from our dream of forgetfulness? If we have a sense that something deep within our being and within the being of the world is out of balance, we can listen. We may hear the cry of Mother Earth and its call to us. And hearing this cry, we might begin to awaken to sense a lack of the sacred, of this primal substance that gives meaning to all life. We cannot return to the simplicity of an indigenous lifestyle, but we can become aware of what we do and how we are at an individual level, and how this affects the global environment, both outer and inner. We can mindfully and bodyfully connect with our Mother Earth on a daily basis. Sometimes it's easier to feel this connection when we're working in the garden, tending our flowers and vegetables, or when we cook, preparing vegetables that Mother Earth has given us. The divine oneness of life is within us and all around us. We just need to pay attention in a particular way. Sometimes walking alone in nature, we can feel its heartbeat and its wonder, and our steps become an act of worship. The simple practice of walking mindfully with every step, feeling the connection with our sacred earth, is one way to reconnect with the living spirit of the planet. There are so many other ways to reconnect with the sacred in our daily lives. When we hear the morning chorus of birds, or gazing up in wonder at the night stars. Watching the simple wonder of dawn or sunset can be a sacrament in itself. Gathering here at the river can be so important, and just enjoying this space, being part of this space together. Mother Earth needs our attention and prayers, needs our love and support, just as it has always given us the love and support that we need. May we remember our role as guardians of the earth and custodians of its sacred ways. And may we return once again to live in harmony with its natural rhythms and laws.